Here's a full tutorial on how to upload on DistroKid the 2024 update. I get a lot of questions about uploading on DistroKid, so in this video, I'm gonna go really in depth about everything you need to know. Let's jump right into it. You can see right here, I have the main page. When you go to upload on DistroKid, first off, we have services. Now, in general, as you can imagine, these are all pretty much auto-checked, except Snapchat, because when you check this, you do have to kind of select that you own 100% of the publishing rights for the release, right? So I'm just gonna click no, I don't, at least for now, but this is typically unchecked. These are the stores and services, I guess same thing, tomato in a sense, that your music is being released under. One exception I wanna say is Beatport. You do have to do this as an add-on. I'll talk about the add-ons at the end of this video. But keep in mind, when it comes to Beatport, this is massive for DJs, electronic musicians. It is $10 extra a month. So let's say if you're spending $23 a year with the basic membership on DistroKid, this is $120 extra a year. If you're an EDM musician or DJ, I feel like you kind of have to do that. Like Beatport is still one of the biggest platforms for electronic music. But I do say this, if you do have the money and everything, it's not a bad idea to release your music if, let's say, you are a pop musician or a hip-hop artist or maybe even like a reggae artist, to also have your music on Beatport, because, hey, you never know. I have done some dedicated videos about this, but I do want to mention this because let's say you do reggae and you post your music on Beatport and someone finds it and they're like, oh, you know what, this is a good song, I'm going to DJ it out live. If you think about it, a DJ performing your music out live is free promotion. And any DJ going to Beatport to download music, or anybody typically going to Beatport to download music, more likely than not is using it for a DJ set, not just to listen to, although there's some people who do, right? Just want to mention that. But I have the services right here. Then I pick the number of songs. This is pretty much boom, 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 very, very quick and easy to understand. Is it a single? Is it a 10-song album? Is it, let's say, a 4-song EP? One thing I do have to mention, this is very important and also bit annoying. On most services, Spotify and especially Apple Music does this. I'm hoping they change this. One song is a single, of course. But under Apple Music and a lot of other stores, 3 songs is considered a single. So even, let's say, if I release an album called, I don't know, Drop the Bass, for example, let's say I release an album or an EP, called Drop the Bass EP, and it's 3 songs. Under Apple Music, it will actually appear as a single, which is very misleading because it's not a single the way we talk about it. So this is something to keep in mind, that there's been some times where, let's say I make 3 songs and I've been like, you know what? I don't want it to be classified as a single. I want it to be classified as an EP. So I'll do a 4th one. I've actually done that a lot. There's been other times though where I'm like, you know what? I feel like this is like a 3-track EP I'm doing for fun. It's something very different than what I typically produce. And so it's kind of like a mini hack where I'll purposely do 3 songs and not a 4th, so it appears under the singles section, so it doesn't appear under the EPs and album section, so therefore it's not misleading of what I typically produce, if that makes sense. So this is something to keep in mind, that when you're releasing your music, and typically anything 7 songs or longer is a full-length album. So let's say if you have 6 songs, it potentially could be classified as an EP. And if you're like, oh shoot, I want this to be like an album, it's my debut album, but it's only 6 songs. Again, this is something just to kind of keep in mind, because this was very shocking to me the first time I released a 3-track EP. And I'm like, why is it being called a single? Doesn't make any sense. Just something to keep in mind. I don't know why stores do this. I'm hoping they change it. Now we have this. Has a single been previously released? No or yes. For most people, just leave it at no. Artist, band name. Right? Now, this is very important. I've done some dedicated videos about this, and I don't want this video to be too long, but I also do want to go in depth. Do some research. Make sure you don't have the same artist name as somebody else, 1, and 2. Think about this. If this is your first time releasing music, just please take a second to be like, all right, do I really like this name? Now, for me, I release music under Ferchero, which is my last name. That's pretty easy and straightforward, right? But let's say if you make up an alias, just really think about this, because changing your artist name is a nightmare. And I get a lot of DMs and messages about DistroKid. The number 1 type of messages I get are about changing your artist name. all the time. And I've heard people get into crazy stories and nightmares. Just before you release, take a second, maybe even a day, even a week. If it takes you a month, even better, because if you try to do it way later on, you can have a bad time. I just want to say that, right? In addition, as you can see here, only list your stage name specifically, right? Now, you can do a random name generator if you want. If like you can't think of one, but, again, that is an option as well. Now, this will be kind of standard once you typically start releasing music. Now, let's say this is your first time releasing, and you're Joe Schmomo. Actually, kind of like that name, Joe Schmomo. Now, this is what's going to happen when you typically go to release music. For your first time ever, it will say, are you already in Spotify? You want to hit no for all of these. Unless you've already released music, all of these should be a no. Now, unless you have an Instagram profile already, like you did this manually and you created an Instagram for your artist, all of these should be no's. If, like, say, take Frachero now, when I do this, because I've only really released music under Frachero, this will happen. So if, let's say, you're going back to release music in the future, this is what it's going to look like. But in the beginning, as you saw, when you first type in your artist's name, for the first time ever, it's going to say, like, oh, do you already exist? You want to hit no for all these except Instagram if you've already made an Instagram account. But now release date, I could do a custom one if I want. You can do that. I typically don't as much. This is a debatable thing, but I know some people like to do that. Next is record label. Now, in order to have this option, and I think the custom release date as well, you need to have the Musicians Plus account, which can be mid-tier. It's $40 a year, as opposed to $23 a year. So it's an extra $17 a year to have these features on DistroKid. 100% worth it. One, it's only 17 extra bucks a year. It's not like an insane amount, but two, when you normally release music on DistroKid, the label is DistroKid. Personally, I just want something more unique, custom, whatever. Creating your own record label, I want to stress, you don't have to have like an LLC or a website. You literally just type in a name. So I came up with the name Meta Music Records. I'm the only one on it. I thought it was a cool name. I kind of like the idea. I don't know. I like the idea of like meta, something very interesting, and meta music I think sounds kind of cool. I think it has like a very professional ring to it. And what's cool is in terms of the record label, you just type it in. So if like say I want to do Joe Schmomo Records, that's all you do. And then when you release music, the label it gets released under is Joe Schmomo Records, or in this case, my label, Meta Music Records. Next, you pick the language. This should be, for all my Americans, typically on English, but I have released music that, let's say, was in French or in Arabic, and it has forced me to pick Arabic or French or the other languages that I release music under. I do release a lot of world music, so this is something to keep in mind that I think it's easy to overlook, but you're like, when I released an Arabic song, I actually had Arabic in the title, like actually Arabic spelling and writing, and so, of course, I did want to pick Arabic over English, right? Just something to be aware of. Now you pick the genre, right? Pick one of these. For my electronic musicians, I would say electronic musics. When you pick electronic, you have to pick an electronic subgenre. It's very interesting that it does not allow you to release your music just as electronic. But they do pick dance, and you don't have to. So let's say if you're like, it's more of like a dance record, you can leave it at dance. But if you're releasing, I'd say specifically EDM or electronic music, you then have to pick a subgenre. You have to. They are adding some all the time. I just mentioned this in my review of DistroKid for 2024. They added glitch hop recently. I think it was like last year or something. Now, yes, I do know that there's a bajillion genres out there when it comes to electronic music. Try to pick the best one. For me, I release a lot of Moomerton, for example. There's no Moomerton on here. So for me, when I release Moomerton, I typically pick reggae/dancehall/dub. I feel like that's the closest one to it. If, let's say, I'm releasing maybe a more heavy bass Moomerton record, which I've done before, sometimes it's called like Moomba Core, or I've even heard like Moomba Step. I might pick dubstep if I feel like it just feels more of a bass song than an actual like dance hall-y reggaeton type song, right? But these are the different things that you just kind of have to like figure out. And this is also why I say for a lot of musicians out there, let's say if you're like, well, Mark, I don't do electronic. In order to release your music on Beatport, as a side note, you do have to select electronic as the genre. So if you are an EDM musician and you pick pop as your release genre, it will not be released under DistroKid. So it's a cool little hack. Let's say you're a pop artist, pick pop. Then you go to electronic as the secondary genre. And then you go here, and let's say you're like, it's a poppy song. I guess the closest thing, let's say, is house. Now that will be released on Beatport. And let's say you're like I said, a reggae artist. You pick reggae, and then under here you pick reggae. That way, you're releasing music because it's reggae. It's not really electronic reggae, it's just reggae. But now using this option, it still gets released under Beatport. And it's a way to get your song on Beatport. And hey, you never know. Like say if you're even like a rock musician, I guess you could put dubstep is probably the closest thing I could think of. I'm going to say indie, not really. Maybe a hardcore, actually, now I think about it. And then that way you can do this and then do rock right here. Right, so again, just a little cool hack in case, like, say you do want to get your music on Beatport and you're not really an electronic musician. I'd say why not? I don't know, that's the way I look at it. Now, album cover. This could get very interesting. This used to be, I think, a bigger issue, but one, it has to be a square. So you can see recommended 3,000 by 3,000, 1,000 by 1,000. It has to be a perfect square. The second thing is you don't want to add any kind of stuff into your album cover. And I've seen people do this where they have like their Twitter in the bottom left corner or like the website or their social media handles. You do not do that, as here they will reject it. A big thing as well is you want to make sure that you own it. I have seen it happen where, let's say you get a copyrighted image, and this happens, you use a copyrighted image, it gets put online, and then someone gets flagged being like, wait, the song's fine, but the image is actually copyrighted, you cannot use it. I will say DistroKid does have an option, let me pull it up, called DistroPick, that you could type in anything. I'll show you some of the images I was actually doing recently. I actually just released a song called Bio Digital Jazz Music Man. And you can see I was just typing in Bio Digital Jazz. I don't know, some of these came out kind of cool, actually. So this is AI generated. It's a square. It's completely custom. And you can use this and like maybe add in your logo. This one came out kind of cool. I didn't use this one, though, actually. I used, I'll show you real quick. It's actually, it's still pending right now. It's still like processing. This is the way the album came out, the album cover. Then it came out kind of cool. I got this, did some color editing on it, just added in the font, and just kind of like made it all look nice and polished. So came out pretty good, but that's a big thing when it comes to album artwork. In my opinion, you have a few different options. One, you hire someone else to do it. I don't think you have to now. Two, you go to DistroPick and use AI generation. Or three, you come up with your other picture by either like taking it yourself, like say with your phone, or you can go to a place like Pixabay to get a royalty-free image, and those are also free. Again, these are kind of things you have to kind of think about, which is very annoying, I will say. As a musician now, half the battle is making a really good song. The other half of the battle is like all this other stuff. Unless you have a manager or an agent, but for most people releasing on DistroKid, you are independent in the sense that you're doing everything yourself, right? So these are things just keep in mind. I think DistroPick, which is included with the DistroKid membership, is the best way to go. Next, titling. Now here, you type in the title. I know it sounds simple, but remember, stores can be very picky about certain things. So you can see right here that if it's a cover song, I've done videos about that, whole other subject for your whole other video, but you don't include any of your dates, and you don't feature the artist. So if my track is called, I don't know, I'll just say drop the bass, I type in drop the bass. That's it. Now, if I'm featuring an artist, I will do something like this, like featured artist or remixer, two different things, and I could type in then, like say Joe Schmo. Like say it's drop the bass, released by Frachero, featuring Joe Schmo. I'm going to do this. Now, this is very important. I'm going to jump down, then jump back up. Does it have it here? Where is it? Let's see. Artist mapping. I'm going to jump back and forth. When you feature an artist, and this is important if you do a feature, you want to include the Spotify artist URI, Apple artist URL, and YouTube Music artist URL. Make sure you do not just skip over this or don't hit no. If they've never released anything before and you're featuring them, you can hit no. But if, let's say they have their own Spotify, they've released music under, and this is a feature, you want to include this data. This is super important. If you don't, trying to remap a song when it comes to a featured artist is a nightmare. So I don't know why they don't include that right up there. They put it kind of down here, so it's very easy to scroll and just ignore it. Don't. So if you're featuring an artist, make sure you map the artist profiles correctly. Just gotta stress that point, right? But anyway, so let's say no. Let's say you're not featuring an artist, you're just releasing this normally. Do you want to add a version? Sometimes I do this where it's like a radio edit. I've done like the funkified version before, stuff like that. I could do like the best not best version, but like say if you have like, I don't know, and I know sometimes artists do this where you release a 2-track EP, you have the song, and then like say a radio edit, or I know some DJs might do like extended mix, right? This is what you can add in that version if you want to. Then you have the song preview. This is exactly how it should look. Your name, of course, drop the bass, the image will be there. And then you pick the audio file. Make sure you're releasing everything as waves or FLACs, basically uncompressed, so it's the best quality. You can master with Mixia. I've never used it. I master my own songs. I can't really, to be honest, speak if it's good or bad. I can't say from experience, but you could try. You never know. Maybe the mastering is really, really good. Then we have Dolby Atmos spatial audio. I don't really do this. I don't know enough about this to give an honest perspective. I'd say just leave it as no, unless you know enough about this to say yes. It does cost extra money, as you can see, so just something to keep in mind. And then we have Songwriter. This is very important when it comes to pros or performance rights organization when it comes to collecting royalties. I use SongTrust, which is different than DistroKid. I have done some videos about the connection between them. Now, when it comes to a Songwriter, for most people, I think, if let's say you wrote it yourself, you can put in your first, middle, and last name. This is your real name, not your artist name, but your real name, and make sure this is super accurate. Now, if another artist wrote it, you can get into the cover songs and all this kind of stuff, right? So this is all the details of cover songs. I've done a dedicated video about this. I think for most people watching this video, you're probably releasing your own music. But if you are doing a cover song, the main idea is this. Cover songs are okay to release. You do have to pay extra money, I want to say that. Cover songs are okay to release, but you can't release a remix. So let's say if you're doing a cover song of Bohemian Rhapsody, you have to create all the elements of Bohemian Rhapsody yourself. That is a cover. However, if let's say you take the already existing Bohemian Rhapsody song and chop it up and do stuff to it, and you use some of the original elements of Bohemian Rhapsody, it's more likely going to fall under a remix, which as you can see here is probably not okay because it goes under really more sampling than anything, right? Just want to say that. Now I'm going back to here though. Make sure you type this in because when you go to collect your royalties from a performance rights organization, here in America we have like ASCAP and BMI, for example, it will be tracking more your songwriter real name. So this is just very important to keep in mind, especially for the future. I do suggest going with SongTrust as well. I've been using them for years, since 2016. This has been like 7 or 8 years now, which is kind of crazy. They collect performance rights from all different places around the world and mechanical. There's a lot they collect, and that's, again, a subject for a whole other video. But when you get paid from your music, there's a bunch of different ways you do. One of them, of course, is if someone streams it or downloads it. Most musicians know that. But there's also royalties in terms of like mechanical royalties, performance royalties, basically other stuff, so to speak, that allows you to get more money from your music when it's performed out, right? A good way to think of it is, let's say if a radio plays your song. Well, they're not really streaming it, right? You're not really streaming a song when you play it on the radio, but in a sense, it's being played out, it's being heard, it's being performed in a sense. You, of course, should get money from that, and you do. So make sure you sign up with pros and everything, and this is where the songwriter real name is very important. Is it explicit or not? Pretty straightforward. Is this a radio edit, right? Something as well. Is it instrumental? This is something that you could debate. Like, say, if you're doing a song like Drop the Bass, for example, and it builds up and it says drop the bass, and that's the only lyric. I guess you could debate this. I just say the song contains lyrics, even if it's, let's say, literally like 6 words, where before the first drop it says drop the bass, and then before the second drop it says drop the bass. I guess technically it contains lyrics, but when it comes to EDM, again, for my DJs out there, is it really lyrics? No, but like what is that one from Martin Garrix, like "We're the Effing Animals"? Is that lyrics per se? I'd say in common space, no, or common speak, no, but maybe like logistically and like on paper, technically, yes, right? Preview clip start time, huge. Massive, especially for right now. This is wicked important. Okay. So, one, do not let that. This is going to be the default. Let the streaming services decide. You want to click this. Now, what happens is this is pretty straightforward, I think, for most musicians. But in case you don't know, a preview clip start time means if I go to, like, say, I've never heard the song before, I go to Apple Music or iTunes, and I want to get a preview of it, I can custom select when the preview happens. So I can say, like, oh, you know what? I'm going to put on the 30-second mark, or I'd say typically for most people, which I'll talk about in a second, maybe the chorus or the drop is a good preview start time. But the big one is TikTok. This also includes Instagram Reels as well. Here's the reason why. When someone goes to use your song on TikTok and they hit preview, they're going to be hearing the preview of that song, and that determines for them, do they want to use your song in their video or not? I have had my music go viral, getting literally like hundreds of millions. I think at this point I'm over like 5 billion views when you combine all my streams and views on TikTok and all this kind of stuff. I'm over 5 billion. And the main reason why is because of this. Because I had a song, my biggest one on TikTok, or one of the biggest ones, was St. Patrick's Day. I was the #1 song in the world to use on TikTok on St. Patrick's Day for like St. Patrick's Day content or whatever. For me, that's not like, All I Want for Christmas Is You, like with Mariah Carey. That's like my version of that, is every March, my song St. Patrick's Day goes viral every year, which is kind of cool. And the big thing for that was this, because when people would go to do a song, or excuse me, when people would go to look for a song about St. Patrick's Day, my song would pop up, but the song preview had a quick build, and then in St. Patrick's Day, Everybody's Irish Tonight, and then the song would drop. So because of that hook, a lot of people on TikTok were like, oh, this is a funny hook, or this is a cool hook, boom. I did another song about Lionel Messi, the famous football player, or the soccer player. And in the beginning, when I first released it, I did this. And the preview clip start time, which is the intro of the song, which is kind of boring, nothing happened to that song. Then I did a custom start time right before the build, and right before the build says, oh, it's Messi leading the way, and then it would drop. So because I had that little hook, that song immediately went from being like meh on TikTok to being my most used song on TikTok by far, even more than St. Patrick's Day. It's wild, right? So I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, but I think if anything, this is the most underrated thing when it comes to releasing music, especially if you want your music heard and you want it to go viral, which why would you not want it to? And granted, you do never know what's going to happen, everything, but this is super important, I think, more than for TikTok and Instagram Reels than anything, because when people preview your song, if it's boring in that preview, they're not going to use your song for their video. But let's say if it is really catchy, or let's say, like I said, if there's a hook, we've all seen this kind of viral TikTok sounds or whatever. If you, let's say, have something really funny right before the drop, or you have like a really funny statement in the chorus, or something that you could think that could be used in a viral type video format, this is the way to do it, right? So again, don't leave this on, let the streaming services decide. Pick the best selection. Track price, I'd say just leave this. 99 cents is pretty standard. Now let's get into the extras. I'm going to be blunt. I don't do any of these. These cost extra money, but again, to be blunt, I don't do any of these. First off, Discovery Pack. Back in the day, might as well mention this. This was 2 years ago. This used to be $1 per year per song for Shazam. In case you don't know Shazam, it's an app where, let's say, if someone's playing a song, you hit a button on your phone, and it will tell you what that song is. That has changed, as now when you release music under Apple Music, which, going back up here, Apple Music is automatically selected, it's included, your song gets automatically, for free, gets put on Shazam. So that's what this used to be, is Shazam. I did a video about that, being like, basically, don't do this anymore. And then we have here, you do have this Discovery Pack, like recognition with SoundScan, song recognition, millions of automobiles, you get official listen and linked in Jacksta, and then audio fingerprinting and rights protection with ARC Cloud, or excuse me, ACR Cloud. I personally don't do this. I bet it could be useful, but for me, it can add up quickly because, I've released, I don't know how many, I'd have to think, but I've released probably like 200 something songs. So that'd be basically, for me, it'd be like an extra $200 a year, which isn't an insane amount, but is the ROI there? Personally, I don't think so. I could be wrong though. You never know, right? But looking into these, I was like, I don't think it's just as worth it, in my opinion. Next, YouTube Content ID. I've done some dedicated videos about this. I'd say no when it comes to DistroKid, when it comes to this. There are other sites and platforms that I think might be a little bit more worth it. If you want to be honest, and I'm very transparent in my videos. The main reason why is with YouTube Content ID on DistroKid, you have to pay money to be in there. So it's $5 a year per single. So let's say if I put 200 of my songs in the YouTube Content ID, I'm now spending $1,000 a year to be in the YouTube ad revenue service. I don't think that's worth it because you could, in my opinion, more likely than not, lose money on this. Unless you're Skrillex or Lady Gaga or Pharrell or Drake or Katy Perry or whatever, like this, in my opinion, is not worth it. There are other services out there that you don't pay any money for, and they just take, let's say, a 30% cut. I think that's way more worth it. I don't think YouTube Content ID is worth it. If you do want to do YouTube Content ID, being honest, I suggest going with a different platform, not DistroKid. Next, Store Maximizer. I don't think this is worth it as well. DistroKid is constantly adding stores to their service, which is amazing. So every year, there's more and more stores and services that DistroKid is releasing your music on. You have to manually add these. I'll show you how to do it. There's not any right now, but I'll just show you how to do this real quick. Let me just pull this up real fast. So let's say I'll do this one because it's already been released. Hot sauce recipe. I'd have to go here, go to add to more stores. There's nothing right now. I have to click the store and then click add. And I have to do that for all my songs. For me, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to do that when a new store is added. Completely worth it as opposed to be doing $8 a year for every single release. In addition, I have had some releases do this. When I first released music under DistroKid, I did use the Store Maximizer, and I still had to manually do it. So I feel like there's some weird glitch with that, so I don't think it's worth it. Social phone number, I think this is up to you. I personally don't think it's worth it, but I mean, it might be for some people. I personally don't do that. Lawless normalization, I personally don't do this as well. Leave a legacy is the only one I can see the logic. Remember, when it comes to leave a legacy, the way it works is if you don't pay your DistroKid fee, remember, it is $23 a year, at least at the exact time of this video, for unlimited uploads. If, let's say, your credit card doesn't go through, you don't pay it, something happens, your music will be removed from stores. So it's $29 a one-time fee. Your music will never be removed ever from stores, as you can see here from the main details. It's $29 one-time fee for a single, $49 for an album. So let's say if you're a musician that releases an album once a year, for an extra $50 just to have that kind of like mental security, I think that makes sense. For me, I release a lot of singles. I feel like that's a big thing in the DJ world, is just releasing tons of singles. So for me, I personally don't do this so I am rolling the dice a little bit, because you never know, something happened to me, you never know, life is very unpredictable, and my feed did not go through with DistroKid, well, my music would be gone. So yeah, so this is something just to consider. And then DistroKid video distribution, it's $100 a year. I don't do this either. Going down here to important check boxes. One, I selected YouTube Music. YouTube is also considered, this is what's kind of tricky about YouTube for a lot of musicians. YouTube is both YouTube to watch videos and everything, but it is also a streaming service. There's YouTube and YouTube Music, and look at YouTube Music on the same level as Spotify and Apple Music. Your music will be released on YouTube under initially what's called a various artist channel, and then YouTube will automatically create an artist profile for you individually, just like Spotify does and other platforms. Next, this is non-standard capitalization detected. Apple Music doesn't like it if you do this kind of weird capitalization, as you can see here. This is a small thing, so again, just something to know that if you do want to have a song that looks like this, which I don't know why that got flagged. Could drop the, maybe it's because I did the T, so I'll just do this. This probably will make it go away. Yeah, so anyway, okay. I won't use promo services. I just did a video about this. So, when it comes to things like Spotify is a classic example, there's a lot of companies out there that say, hey, give us $50, we'll give you 10,000 Spotify streams. They're legit, they're organic, blah, blah, blah. Don't do it. Spotify is getting smarter and smarter every day. It's getting more popular to buy streams and to artificially boost you when it comes to Spotify and other platforms. You can see right here, 100 of these services use fake stream bots that are easily detectable. And in addition, if they find you, which most likely they will remove your music, withhold royalties, fine you, and ban you from their service when they detect it. Not worth it. Next, You have to claim that you recorded the music and you're authorized to sell it in stores worldwide and collect all royalties. By recorded, that also includes produce, right? Like, of course, if you like made everything yourself. I'm not using any artist's name in my song, right? Of course, I can't put like, oh, Skrillex was in this song. Definitely can't do that. And then lastly, you have read and agreed to the terms of the DistroKid distribution agreement. Now, one last thing I want to say is the timeline. Typically, once you hit that button, you upload your music, it will upload the album artwork and the song and or songs when it comes to your release. Once that's all processed, I'd say it does depend. I'd say about either same day /1 to 2 /1 to 3 business days. What's tricky is actually depends upon the store. So typically, I'd say same day. Like, say if I release a song at 8 in the morning and it's a business day, like a Monday, for example, I'd say it'll be live on YouTube Music, Instagram, and Facebook. I'd say almost instantly. It's within minutes typically. Spotify, I find, takes about 1 to 2 business days, and then the other platforms can fluctuate. Some of them take a few more business days, other ones might take a week. So this is something to keep in mind. I'd say, like, say if you are releasing music and you want to immediately be like, hey, check out my music on Amazon, or check it out on Audio, or Deezer, or Tidal, or all these other platforms, keep in mind the rate of when that song will actually be live on those platforms does vary. And I suggest to a lot of people, let's say if you do want to do a pre-release, or let's say you're not even pre-releasing, but you want to make it so that your song's everywhere, like on pretty much all the platforms, give yourself at least a week. So that's what I typically do. I sometimes, honestly, I mean, I'm not saying this is the best approach, but this is typically what I do, if you want to be honest, is I will sometimes, like say I'm releasing a song on, I don't know, February 10th, for example. That's when I'm going to be promoting it, is February 10th. I'll usually release it on February 1st, for example. I just won't talk about it, right? So if someone finds it, whatever, life goes on. But like, I'll post it, like say on February 1st, I'll release it. That way, by the time it is February 10th, I'll pretty much 99.9% certain, unless there's a huge issue, but typically there isn't, that it'll be on all the platforms. So keep in mind, if actually you do want to promote your songs, and you want to say to people like, hey, I'm on every streaming service, Amazon Audio, Deezer, Tidal, YouTube Music, Spotify, Apple Music. I mean, there's a bajillion of them now. If you want to make sure that people can find you pretty much everywhere, give yourself at least a week. I like to say 2 weeks because if you think about it, a week, in a sense, is really 5 business days. I'd rather 10 full business days, right? 2 weeks, just to be safe rather than sorry.